Welcome to Who Are You, a CSI podcast. I am Lauren, and I've seen CSI through and through around 3 to 4 times.
And I'm Nick, and this is my first time experiencing all these episodes.
And today we are reviewing Season 2, Episode 22, Cross Jurisdictions. Original air date is May 9th, 2002. Director is Danny Cannon. Writers are Anthony E. Zeiker, Ann Donahue, and Carol Mendelsohn. We start the episode the way that we very often start the episode, which is shots of the Vegas Strip. And then we skedoodle to a party at a mansion. But before we enter said mansion, Nick, what is our Vegas score?
Our Vegas score is 20. We have
that's more than I thought it was going to be. Okay.
There's an extra scene at the end. A little stratosphere.
Yes.
Down at the strip.
Yes. Okay.
Kind of sneaks us in a few more points. But I have a different city score for this episode as well.
We
have a strong... I don't know if you want to do it now or hold it.
No, let's do it. What's our Miami score for this episode?
45.
Spoiler alert. Holy goodness.
There's 9 shots of Miami, and it's not like as famous, I think, as Vegas. It's just like downtown Miami or some buildings on the water. I couldn't tell you a single thing that I saw, but they're fast too. So it's only 18 seconds worth of footage, but it's 9 different shots, and they just kept coming. I just started writing it down and be like, all right, yeah. So 45 points. I actually thought we were gonna. I thought we were gonna go higher, and in my head I started to say, well, the thing is, Vegas is LV, so it's out of 55. Right. It's Roman numerals. Mm-hmm. Miami is MI. That's 1,001. So the ceiling's really high in Roman numerals for a Miami score.
It's fair.
I think you would need like a different scene like every minute. Like mostly all
basically like, just shots of Miami and almost nothing else.
Yeah. I mean, in 45 minutes you need like 20 points a minute. So that's like 50% of the time you're just staring at Miami.
Just staring at Miami, which at some points sort of felt like we were in this episode, but we'll get there. We start in Vegas. So we have scenes of the Vegas Strip. We then hone in on a party going on in a mansion. We go inside said party. There are like 2 women all over this person they were calling Chief. And
let's kick us off with an early spot the guest star.
Whoa. Okay, let's go.
One of these women, who I probably should have written down her character's name, but is the more pertinent witness character in the storyline.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I was at this scene, I was like, who is that? And then later on, she's being questioned, talked to by the police, like for real, not as a suspect, but for information. And this is Carrie Werr, who is in Sliders, the hit 2000s, late 90s, I don't know, show with Jerry O'Connell.
I love Sliders.
From world to world.
I knew that she looked familiar, but I just thought
it
didn't generate enough of a I know her for me to dig any further than that.
Yeah. So here's the worst part. I forgot she was in Sliders, and then I saw an image of her in Sliders, and I was like, oh yeah. But also, she was in a lot of like Maxim magazine, M magazine, those things that teenage boys from the 2000s.
She was also
put as screensavers.
She was also in the 1997 Jennifer Lopez classic Anaconda.
Yes, that is true. Which I remembered, like I saw that, I remember it, I was like, oh yeah, she is in that movie. But like,
I don't remember her in this movie at all. And I watched this movie. I mean, it's been a long time since I've watched it, but I've definitely watched this movie.
I mean, I don't believe, I think her character dies quickly. Which is the part.
Spoiler alert for a 1997 movie.
She's done a lot of like
horror movies. She doesn't survive the Anaconda very long.
But yeah, so I was actually surprised how little things that she's in that I've heard of, realistically. I mean, or know from, given that in my mind this was like up there with like, you know, people like, I don't know. She seemed like she was just on like TV a lot, you know, like MTV a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, but she wasn't really in anything. She wasn't in a lot of movies. She wasn't in a lot of TV shows. But yeah, I was like, I want to know this person. And then when Better Light, I was like, oh yeah, I definitely know who this person is. And I did have to I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I have a very particular friend who's very much into this actress. which is
Oh.
one of the reasons why I think I even know
Oh, that's so
her name.
funny.
But I was like, oh yeah, that's who that is.
If you listen to the show, you know who you are.
Probably, for sure.
I don't know who you are, but you know who you are.
Well,
I know them, but I don't know. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. You've met this human being before.
Yeah.
And it's probably not who you're thinking.
Well, we'll talk off air about it.
Yeah. But so that was a one of two spot the guest stars I have.
Ooh,
The other one might be a little controversial.
Ooh, okay. All right. So we'll get there. So basically we're supposed to understand that this party is like scandalous and men have multiple women that they're going up to bed with. You know, it's like, oh, like how risque. But we then
eyes wide shut.
Yes, we then see like a young girl like kind of peeking out of a bedroom. She sees a man and like a few women go into like the bedroom across the hall. She goes back in her room, shuts the door, like climbs into bed, and the clock shows that it's around like 4 a.m. at this time. She falls asleep, but she wakes up to hearing gunshots, and it's now like 4:45 a.m. or something. I can't remember the exact time, but they shoot to the clock again. Some time has passed. This jolts us to Grissom, Catherine, and Jim Brass on the scene. Tons of cop cars. We find out very soon why, but there's like 12 cop cars in front of this mansion. We go inside of the mansion, and we learn that Chief is called Chief because he used to be like the head of the police. And he left to do like private security and obviously make a lot more money because he's now like in a hoity-toity mansion. But that doesn't really matter at the moment because he is dead on the table, apple shoved inside of his mouth. Grissom's like pretty clear on the message: kill the pig, which never comes back around.
Makes sense. It doesn't really track with the MO, the rest, or anything like that.
This does not. Spoiler alert: he is not murdered because he used to be a police detective.
Yeah,
like him formerly being a police detective has literally no bearing on the case whatsoever. Like if he stayed a police detective, he probably wouldn't have gotten murdered because he wouldn't have made a lot of money.
Yeah. I don't know how much money he's really being paid, because if you can't afford for your like 5-year-old daughter to go to like a babysitter when you're going to have 100 people, I don't care what you're doing at this party, but let's just say you were just drinking and dancing.
Yeah,
she's got a bedtime.
Yeah, your 7-year-old daughter doesn't need to be there with no one to care for her. Like, just left on her lonesome. So we are judging their parenting here. We learn that the wife is missing. At this point, they assume that the girl is at her grandmother's house because they're like, oh yeah, they were having a party. So the housekeeper assumed that she was at her grandmother's. Catherine goes into...
It's so much worse that there was a real possible place to send her.
Yes.
And then they just chose not to.
They chose not to. I mean, storyline-wise, she plays a pretty pivotal role in the story. Yeah. So obviously that's why she's there. But yeah, from a parenting standpoint, it's like, don't do this, parents. I mean, I'm not a parent, and I don't generally tell parents what to do, but like this one is a pretty clear-cut one. Catherine goes into the girl's bedroom, though, and quickly disagrees that she's at her grandmother's. Catherine's like, no, the girl is missing. Like, just from like how the room was left, I don't know, but she's just like, nope.
Oh, I thought they were like contacted the grandmother and
they do confirm, but Catherine's the first one to go like, no, I don't think that she's at her grandmother's. Like, I think she's missing as well. We go to credits. We're then with Grissom outside of the mansion with the team, except for Catherine. He's just giving them basically the rundown of what we just learned in the first like 3 minutes of the episode. He's like, Chief is dead, wife is missing, daughter is missing. So they kind of break off into their, they're going to go handle different aspects of examining the scene. Doc Robbins makes a house call and is at the house with Grissom and Catherine.
High profile case.
Yeah, high profile case.
A house call.
Yeah, he makes a house call. And we learned that he was shot execution style. We also learn in the scene that he had bruising around the handcuffs, so he probably did resist. Like, once he was cuffed, he he put up some level of a fight to not meet his end.
I thought they were going to come back to that being like later on, being like, oh no, that all just happened during the fun part of the evening.
I mean, consenting adults, you're allowed to do consenting adult things, but that's not what they're implying in this scene. Catherine also finds the casing from a 9mm. which brings her and Jim Brass to the chief's gun safe. Guess what's missing? The 9mm gun that he was given as like a gift in honor of his like 25 years of service. That is the only gun that is missing from his gun safe, is that one. Grissom and Catherine then have a walk and talk. Catherine thinks that the wife is involved. Grissom doesn't seem to really like buy into this. The security guard is saying that he saw the chief leave, but they, after questioning him a little bit further, realized that he just saw someone leave wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses.
Well, a baseball cap that said chief on it.
Not,
I mean, come on.
Not.
He said he always wears them. Though.
He always wears them.
He always leaves the house like he's hiding from the paparazzi.
Yep. So come to find out, that was not the chief leaving, but they do find the chief's car. So Jim Brass, Grissom, and Catherine show up at a car garage. There's a body in his trunk. Wompity womp.
Do we ever really get an explanation of who this person is?
We get his name, but we get like no context as to why he was murdered and why he was left in the trunk. I specifically, this second watch through, was like, I'm going to really pay attention to this body in the trunk because I feel like I missed something on the first watch through. And so I really paid attention this watch through, and I was like, no, I didn't miss anything. They just ID him. They ID his cause of death.
And then that's
it.
Spoiler alert, I thought he was the person driving the car. I thought it was like part of the gig. Right. And then it turns out he wasn't the person driving the car.
No.
Because it's important later on that the actual person that they're looking for was the person driving the car. That becomes an important piece of evidence. And so I was just like, why did they kill this guy and leave him in a trunk?
I have no idea.
This is completely meaningless.
It's completely... Poor guy died for nothing.
He's not another rich dude. You know what I mean? Like, they don't...
No.
He's not a limo driver.
Nope.
He's not... I had all these like theories. I was like, I too was like, I need to pay attention. I clearly missed something. There's a thread here.
Nope.
This is not a red herring. This is a dead herring.
It's just a poor dead herring. So as they're there at the garage, Jim Brass gets a call and he lets Grissom and Catherine know that calls have been coming in from Florida about people spotting a girl on the side of the road that matches the missing girl's description. So
classic
one of them,
Florida drivers, by the way, 5-year-old girl on an access road in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, just leave her there.
I'm just call this in. I'm not gonna stop.
I'm not gonna stop and wait.
See if she needs help.
No. Just gonna keep on driving. But hey, I'm a good Samaritan and I called it in. So Grissom's like, all right, well, I guess, one of us has to go to Miami. So who I'm gonna send? The one person who has a child.
Yeah.
Everybody else on your team has no dependents. I don't even know if they have pets. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. But they definitely don't have children. And you literally send the one member of your team who is a single parent down to Miami.
Yeah. Should have sent Sarah, because it's probably after Catherine, the person you probably trust the most.
Right. Send Sarah and Warwick. Whatever. But so they send Catherine and Warwick. We get, as Nick mentioned, because we have a Miami score, we get a lot of shots of Miami. So they'll like,
up front,
oh, you're leaving for Miami.
Scenes.
Yeah, they're like, you're leaving for Miami. And then they're like, shots of Miami, shots of Miami, shots of Miami.
Yeah, there were 4 shots of Miami, and they were rapid. They were only like 6 seconds. It was like, bam, bam, bam. And again, no idea where any of these places are.
No,
I'm sure
I've never been to Miami.
I'm sure there's famous places in Miami.
Of course. Yeah, I'm sure there are, but I've never been, so I don't know. We see a police officer. He's like yelling what clothing the girl is wearing. He's, breaking these officers into different groups to search different areas, who we very soon afterwards learn to be Horatio Kane, but also David Caruso. He just goes down this like dirt road, access road by his lonesome. Like nobody else, he randomly sees a pig. I don't know what purpose the pig is supposed to serve, other than there's pigs in Florida. I don't know. Like, I was a little
worried. Pigs are like, wild boars are like notoriously dangerous.
Yes,
animals.
Like they're dangerous. They can be very violent or aggressive, I guess is probably the better word. But as he's going through this access road, he finds a butterfly clip. He then spots Sasha, the missing girl, like off the road a little bit in some palms. He goes down, sits there, and instead of bringing her back to like where everyone is kind of congregated where like HQ is for this mission, he's like, I'll just sit with you until they find us, knowing
fair,
that
HQ
nobody else
is
was
like,
behind him.
I was going to say, to be fair, HQ is like 18 feet away. I'm not entirely sure how every other police officer walked by and missed her.
I don't know, but still weird, in my opinion. I thought it was very strange. But Horatio is then talking with a different officer. He wants to expand the alert, trying to find, the suspect and the still missing wife.
The
Catherine
police officer shout acting in this episode is on point.
There's a lot of shout.
Like,
There's a lot of shout
police
acting.
are just yelling facts.
They're just like, yep, get that information out there loud and clear. Catherine and Warwick arrive via helicopter, like grand entrance, come in on a helicopter. Catherine goes to Sasha to process, so she starts like processing her. She's asking her some questions. She notices that Sasha's like holding one of her hands closed. She does end up opening it thanks to some persuasion from Horatio. And when she opens it, we see that there's a casing in there. And we also learn that the casing was hot when she picked it up because Horatio tried to trick her and be like, oh, so the casing was obviously cold. And she was like, no, like it was hot. You're like, you tried to trick me. And I was like, Horatio, I'm not the best with kids. I'm not. This is weird. I don't know what you're doing to this poor girl. To like, her dad's dead, and you know that there's a pretty high probability her mom's dead too.
Didn't she already tell them that she was fired at, or at least they showed her the reenactment?
They showed the reenactment, so yeah, they showed it in the reenactment. She has not verbally, or at least on in scene, she hasn't done it.
Yeah, I guess I was assuming that she was depicting what had happened, so that made the question bizarre to me. Also, great job, Catherine, removing all of this evidence from this little girl. Good to know that they never process it.
No.
Or talk about it.
Never talk about it. Nope. Like, never comes up.
No fibers, no fingerprints.
Nope. We're then with Horatio, Callie, who's another member of Horatio's team, Catherine and Warwick. They're talking about the casings, and we realize that the casing that the girl had is not from the chief's gun. It's not from a 9mm gun. It is actually most likely from a Beretta knockoff, which leads them to think that this guy wasn't like just fleeing to Miami, right? Like, oh, I did a crime and now I need to get out of here. He was returning home. Like, Miami is actually his home base, and he was coming back home.
The only problem I have with this is that there's no reason to think he couldn't have come to Miami for whatever reason and then gotten a gun, since he's murdered like 4 people or something already. like random dude in a trunk, the police chief. It's like who, like, what makes you think he hasn't murdered somebody since he got to Miami and then taken their gun? Because he murdered the police chief presumably with his own gun, and so this whole notion. Okay,
the guy in the trunk must be the chief's driver.
But
no, because it was his own car.
Yeah,
and he said they saw him leave.
He's just a random person.
Okay, well, speaking of random person, we're with Doc Robbins and Grissom with AKA Trunk Man, who we learn is Jason Doyle. We also learn that he has been dead for 3 days.
Which is 1 day longer than the police chief.
He has no GSR. He has no GSR in his hand, so he is not the one who shot the chief. And he was shot with a 9mm.
Oh, I wonder if he was the... They don't say this, but I wonder if he was the high roller from Vegas who...
Oh, that he pretended to be
in Miami.
Maybe,
yeah, but it doesn't have the same name as those. Yeah, I don't know. They don't say that, so
they don't.
It's hard to know. I feel like maybe there was a. It feels like there was a scene cut out. Honestly,
there has to be, because this is the last we ever hear about Jason Doyle. He never comes up again in this episode.
Rest in peace, Jason Doyle.
Rest in peace, Jason Doyle. You were taken from us too soon. So Sarah and Nick are processing evidence. They're having a bit of a risque conversation about swingers parties and frat parties and having multiple partners.
Sarah's really like pushing Nick.
She's really pushing Nick, and Nick is being somewhat coy. Like, he's giving a little bit like, oh yeah, like I could have multiple partners like at a party, but this conversation is cut short.
He's not trying to brag or anything. You know what I mean? Like, she keeps asking questions.
I feel like he is a little bit.
I know,
but you might be right. Yeah.
At the end, he is, but like
Yeah.
initially, he's like, "Yeah, I mean, forever." He's being very sort of like dancing around it, and then she just keeps poking and poking. And I actually expected her to like end it with like some weird, like some comment to be like, I don't know, like to say so. I really thought Sarah was gonna be like, "Oh, actually sounds quite tame compared to some of the parties that I went to," or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And she wanted to like get Nick to admit how wild his most wildest party was, just so she could be like, "Yeah, that's not that." But
Yeah. Yeah. So they do end up matching one of the prints that they got from the scene, though. It belongs to our Spot the guest star, but in this episode, she is Tiffany Langer. So Grissom and Nick then talk with Tiffany. She is like not going to give details up on her date. She got in the inner circle. She wants to stay in the inner circle. She is not going to be throwing names around. But they do ask her, like, okay, but is there like anything you can tell us about your date? And I do like her character in this. Like she's like a tough woman who knows what she wants, and I like that about her. She's just like, oh, well, he was circumcised and he was rich, and
yeah, Libra.
yeah, and Libra, like just giving like the information that she cared to know about him. But she does share a little nugget that somehow, like, I guess is important to the investigation, but is it really?
It's unwarranted how much attention they give to
Yes.
this nugget of information.
So the nugget of information that she has is that he wore, well, she thought it was cheap cologne, but then she was like, he just smelled funny. He smelled sickly sweet. They say, like, you could have made that into a drinking game in this episode.
Yes.
Like, take a shot every time they say sickly sweet, and you would be hammered by the end of this episode. So we then go back to Miami. Warwick, Catherine, and Callie are on that dirt access road. Warwick finds a benzo, so this is where they're like, oh, the reason that the wife probably wasn't able to get away is she was probably drugged. Like she was probably on benzos, and that's why she couldn't get away, but she was able to like let her daughter escape. Horatio's there as well. He immediately is like, he obviously stopped the car to take a leak.
Yeah.
So he goes into the palms, finds footprints, finds urine.
I disagree. This whole you lock your door. I barely close the door when I'm at home, all the way when I'm at home, and people are home.
I live by myself. Unless like I'm showering and I like really just need a moment of peace, I always leave my bathroom door open, because if I don't, the dogs and cats are on the other side of it, like crying and scratching at the door and begging to come in. So it's just easier for me to leave my door open. I don't lock my bathroom door every time I go use the bathroom in my own house.
I only actually ever lock the bathroom door when the upstairs when I know the cat is going to try to open the door, because it will push open if you push on it hard enough.
Cat's like, I know how to get in here.
I have been stuck in a situation where I am pants down on the toilet and the door swings wide open and the cat's there. And I'm like, I need a minute before I can stand up and close this door.
Like, can you just give me a little bit of time? Then Horatio gets a call. FBI's there. So then they're at this like resort sort of thing.
I have to ask a question.
Yes.
Spoilery, I guess, question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually have an idea of like how many episodes of CSI Miami have existed yet.
This might be the introduction to CSI Miami.
Okay. They make a really big deal about the feds and like this like tension between the feds and Horatio. Is this like a theme through that show for like a long time?
To a degree, because there's a lot of like drug smuggling and things like that happen in Miami. So like the FBI tends to be more involved in the cases in CSI Miami than they have been for CSI Vegas.
There's also, it gets weird too, like they like start threatening each other. It's like, I don't understand this at all.
Well, let's go see. Okay, so hold on. So this was original air date May 9th, 2002. Let me do CSI Miami. Let me open their IMDb and see when their first episode was. There was 232 episodes, though, just so you know. So Monday, September 23rd, 2002 was the first episode of CSI Miami. So this came out before CSI. Like, this was the introduction to CSI Miami. Was this?
They're probably testing the waters.
Big? Yeah, they're probably wanting to like build interest in the show before So yeah, this came out beforehand. So they're at the, what we learn later is the shore club. Catherine's on the phone talking to Grissom again, and Grissom's the only thing Grissom has right now is that he smells sickly sweet. They don't know why. Again, it doesn't really end up helping solve the case necessarily, but, well, I guess it sort of does. It sort of does, but in a really roundabout way. Speedle comes in,
This is
and this is also a member of Horatio's.
This is my controversial spot the guest star.
Ooh, okay.
Because, although I guess it's even more fair after what we just discussed, because there is not yet a CSI Miami. He's a member of the CSI Miami crew, which was not obvious to me, by the way.
Oh yeah, he is. I've watched. I haven't watched all of CSI Miami, but I've watched some of it, so I know that he's a member of it.
But I cannot not call this out. So this Rory Cochrane is the actor's name. He is in a what I would consider a cult classic teen movie from my childhood called Empire Records, where he plays a kid named Lucas who takes the money from the record store, goes to like Atlantic City, bets it all, and loses it. And the whole movie is based. It's like Rex, and he's like handcuffed to it, or no, he's like the main character who owns the record store and tells him to stay there. And there's a little kid who robs the store, and they handcuff him to a table or something. And at one point, Lucas is gluing quarters to the floor. And this kid, he's asked him, why are you gluing quarters to the floor? And he says, I don't need to explain my art to you, Lauren. And I quote that line all the time. And I saw him and I was like, it's Lucas from Empire Records.
You're like, I know him.
And I was like, so he was like, had that real visceral, I know who that is. And so I had to include him, even though I shortly figured out that he was in fact part of the CSI crew in Miami.
He is part of the CSI crew in Miami, which is why I didn't call out David Caruso, because I was like, well, he's on the CSI Miami cast. But
I knew this person was if CSI was never made. You know what I mean?
Fair.
Like,
totally fair.
If he was just in a normal episode of CSI, I would be like, spot the guest star.
Yes. Totally fair.
But also because I literally all the time, and I was like, I don't need to explain my art to you, Warren. And then people look at me funny because it doesn't make any sense.
They're like, I don't know what you're
most
talking
people
about.
have not really seen that movie 30 times like I did.
I was just saying, I'm like, I think I've seen it once, and that was a long time ago, so I don't really remember much about it, to be honest.
I think there's a lot of like famous people in that movie. I think Liv Tyler is in that movie, and
I think you're right.
Renee Zellweger, because she thinks she sings a song at the end.
Okay. So Speedle was talking to the FBI. He mentions that the case might be part of a serial killer case that they're tracking. This leads Horatio to go confront Dennis, one of the FBI agents, and lets him know, like, he's gonna make this personal if he doesn't, like, give him the information that he's looking for. So Dennis caves immediately and tells Horatio that all of the victims stayed at the shore club, like where they are right now. In the last like year or two, all of the victims had stayed there. Callie walks up, speaks Spanish to Horatio, walks away. I'm trying to learn Spanish. I have no idea what she said, but I did think it was funny when Dennis is like, well, what did she say? And Horatio's like, she told you to learn the language. And I was like, yeah, if you're an FBI agent, like primarily working out of Miami, you should probably know how to speak Spanish. Like that would be a very helpful language for you to know. So we then go to, well, again, we don't know that this is his name at this point. He's introduced later, but we go to Delco. He is going in to dive in the water. The team is there. He pops down under the water, comes back up, thumbs up, and then thumbs down, which we learned to mean, yay, I found the car, thumbs up. Dead body inside, thumbs down.
Yeah.
So they pull the car from the water. The wife is inside, Mina Riddle. Horatio and Catherine are with Miami's Doc Robbins, who is very different from Doc Robbins.
Very, very, very different. The whole team, they really want to sell that this is going to be a different style of crime solving.
Yes. I don't think they ever introduce her. Like, I don't think they ever say, like, this is her name, but her character is Alex Woods. But I don't think that they ever say that in this episode.
Like the regular person going forward?
Right. Yeah. We learn from her that Mina Riddle was alive when she was put in the canal. And then they end up finding this like substance, like that's keeping her eyes shut, and it's in her ear canals. We come back to the substance, folks. So just remember. Speedle is then on a pier. Delco rises from the water. Not only did he find a car and a dead body, he found the gun. He found the Beretta. So
Yep.
they find the gun. Tiffany is with a sketch artist trying to sketch her date from the party. Sasha's also with a different sketch artist, giving her take on what he looked like. Catherine is then on the phone with Nick. Like, flyers of the sketches are printing out. And we learn from Horatio that the substance that they found on the wife is honey, which brings them to Hive, which is a fun club where very attractive women have plastic
Saran
wrap. Yeah, like plastic wrap, saran wrap over their delicates, let's say. And then they lie down, get covered in honey, and people grab apple slices and like dip the apple slices on the honey like off of the woman's body. So
there's no way the Board of Health approves that.
No way. And it's also funny because we're watching, this is obviously like way before COVID, but I think like having lived through COVID now, especially, I'm like, oh gosh, no, I wouldn't. That's so many germs.
I mean, really just any flu season.
Yeah. Oh, crap. I know. It's all gross. Horatio
No double dipping.
No double dipping. Horatio doesn't have to worry about that though, because he does not go for an apple slice. He goes for a swab. Doc Robbins and Grissom are then talking. They're talking about like different medical conditions that could, possibly cause somebody to like have a certain scent. Jim Brass enters. He cannot understand how they're helping by just like sitting around talking and looking at books. Yeah. He's like, feet on the ground, guys. But Doc Robbins does come up with the idea that maybe the killer has diabetic ketoacidosis, which can cause someone to emit a sweet-smelling odor. Beetle's then identifying the honey with Horatio. So we learn that the honey from Hive is Tupelo honey, which is like the purest of honeys. So then Horatio has him look at the sample from the wife. Exact same honey.
I mean, it's maybe my least favorite matchy.
It's a very lame matchy. Because you don't even get a side by side. You get one slide, that slide disappears, then you get another slide.
It's the same shot. It's the same.
Is it? Okay, I'm sure.
Yeah, every bubble looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this, but I don't think looking at honey under a microscope is how you tell what kind of bee it comes from.
I would agree with that, yes.
Like, I don't know what we were supposed to be looking at. I was like, wait, what are they? At first I thought they were like showing the same thing. And so it was kind of a weird, it's probably my least favorite matchy scene. It reminds me of, do you remember early on, I don't know if it was the first or second episode, I talked about like they printed out the test results and they had the same.
Yes, they had the same
printer scene.
Yes.
They just, and it's like, and like they were like, one was for like DNA and one was for like fingerprints. And the same like piece of paper coming in the printer. That's what it reminded me of.
Yes.
And I was like, there's a lot of like pilot production level stuff going on
happening
in this episode. And I was like, all right, maybe it's just a secret callback to the first episode.
Maybe that's all it is. They just wanted to
inside joke.
Mm-hmm. So Warwick and Horatio are then getting honey from Hive, $500 a pop. Callie has a receipt from 2 days ago, though. But that doesn't really matter because Catherine is talking to the bouncer. Horatio enters, and we learn that the honey was not bought by like some rich person. It was bought by a limo driver. The limo driver came in and said that he was buying it like for his client, but he like came in and he bought the honey. Which brings us to Delco, Catherine, and Horatio with a pulled over limo. We learn that the driver his last name is Damler. And he's saying that the customer that he had when he went to go pick up the honey paid in cash. He doesn't know his name. And so they want to investigate the limo. They're like, yeah, sure. Knock yourself out. So Catherine and Horatio examined the limo. They're like Catherine's really checking out all of the liquor bottles to try to see if there was like a liquor they were drinking that was sweet. Like that could explain why they smelled sickly sweet. So many times. Just don't make it into a drinking game. But it was like vodka and gin. Horatio sits in the front seat, turns on the air. That air is sickly sweet. Curious. Grissom is back with Tiffany. He asks her to smell a hat.
Yep.
She does. And she's like, that's the smell.
Well, so the Chief's hat that he was wearing when he drove out. That's why I knew that it couldn't have been the other guy driving the car.
Yeah, because he was driving the Chief's hat.
Suspect.
Yep. So good call. I was like, where did they get that hat from? Like I did not put two and two together. I've been working a lot of hours recently, listeners, so I apologize, but I'm very tired.
Because Doc Robbins is like, oh, too bad you don't have a piece of the guy's clothing. And then Grissom is like, I think I overlooked a piece of evidence.
Yeah, because he's like, oh, the hat. I totally did not put two and two together. So good good call there, Nick. I'm always glad that you're my co-host, but I'm especially glad when you catch things that I totally missed.
It's rare.
But so then Kristen is like, what was he drinking? Like, was he drinking, these like sweet? And she was like, oh no, he drank champagne. The only thing he drank was champagne. He drank champagne the entire time.
Which is kind of sweet.
It is kind of sweet. That's what I thought. I was like, that doesn't necessarily
Like,
negate smelling sweet, in my opinion. But
I mean, it depends. Like, there's champagne that's dry. It's all different, but
yeah, and I don't drink
it's
enough
got sugar in it.
Yeah, I don't know enough. I don't particularly like champagne, so I haven't had enough varieties of champagne to really have any knowledge on what Dom is. But Grissom calls Catherine, tells her about the diabetes. Horatio wants to know, like, well, what medication would they take if somebody had, this condition? And they would take Novolin insulin. So that brings us to Catherine and Horatio. With the results on the urine has synthetic insulin in it, meaning like, oh, this is probably our killer because the urine has synthetic insulin in it. So they look to see who's bought synthetic insulin, as if diabetes is not a widespread condition. So, a lot of people have diabetes.
Also, I'm no expert in this subject matter expert, but I really struggle to believe HIPAA already exists at this time.
Yes.
That there is just some database where the police without a warrant are allowed to sort of comb through every single person's medications.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's true. I find that very difficult to believe. I'm sure that exists, but you need permission to access it in a limited, defined scope of what you're allowed to look at.
Yeah, not in this case, though. So they find out that Daimler bought some. Wompity womp. They had their killer and they let him go. But they realize that his current address is actually the house that belongs to Sissy and Dylan Corwin, who he said he was picking up from the airport. So, oh no.
I mean, this guy, I know he's getting caught this episode, but like, has he been changing his home address to every rich person he's killed? And if so, why has the FBI not caught him?
I don't know.
Why have we just not looked at whoever changes their name? Yeah, this guy keeps changing his name to these addresses. These people keep dying, but we can't figure out who's killing all these people.
Who's killing them? There's like a random guy staying at their house, but like, whatever, that's fine. Like, it's okay.
But also, why did you change your address? You haven't even killed these people yet.
You haven't even killed them yet. I don't know. But they go to the house because he was stupid enough to put that as his address. So Horatio Warwick
on something. They don't.
Yeah, they don't say where they get the address
like from. His driver's license? Like, you fill that out once every 10 years.
Or what address the pharmacy has.
Oh, maybe. Actually, that might be the most reasonable answer.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So Horatio, Warwick, Catherine, and Speedle to the house. There's a fairly drawn out, like, them going through the house, guns drawn, like, action film, like...
Is Speedle supposed to be like the Greg Sanders, and why? But he's in the field.
No, but I think he's a pretty green CSI.
Okay, because he's got the lab coat on in another scene doing like the honey analysis.
Yeah, I think he's like more of a Nick. If we were to,
Warwick, who was the last person to be promoted.
That is true, but I feel like 3. They treat Nick like he is less seasoned than Warwick is sometimes. But Warwick, speaking of, finds a blood trail to the garage. Catherine finds a bit of plastic wrap on a bed, which probably was part of what was wrapped around the wife. Horatio finds honey in the shower. But Speedle's like, hey, guys, come check this out. So Horatio and Catherine join them. They walk outside to, like, the water. The boat is missing. And Horatio, kind of fairly, is like, call the Coast Guard! Like, why are you gently walking us outside and drawing this out? This was a very Greg Sanders moment of like, why didn't you just give us the results already? Like, what are you doing? So they call the Coast Guard. This brings us to the FBI, the entire Miami team, Catherine and Warwick. They found the boat. It's like nighttime. They're at like a different dock. The boat's, out there. Dennis, FBI man, wants to shoot the mail signature. He's just like, that's the killer, so shoot him. Everybody else is like, I don't know. He's not really acting like, he's not doing aggressive things. Like, maybe we should wait. And then Horatio's like, wait. And we see, I do like that they gave you the flashback to Horatio looking at the pictures hung up in the Corwin's house. Because one of the pictures was them in front of a private jet. So Horatio's like,
I love that Horatio's like, they're on a jet. Don't shoot. Or they're on a jet. Like, don't shoot. Like, that's like, what does that mean? A little more context here, Horatio.
Yeah, he's just like, they have a jet. Don't shoot. But he does force the shooter to stand down. He just bullies the shooter.
Because Horatio is going to make everyone's life difficult as the head of CSI and not a police officer. The FBI are very afraid of him.
Yes, terrified of him. So, but they do stand down. Horatio and Catherine enter the boat. The husband's over his wife. They're both bloody, and he's like, I tried. I'm so sorry. We never learn his wife's fate. We're led to believe. No, I guess we sort of do. We do
she's
learn. She's
already dead.
Yeah, she's dead. Okay.
They didn't like call an ambulance. Like, oh, no, she's dead.
I thought they called rescue, but it was for him. Then, after boarding a boat, Horatio and Catherine board a jet, and Dumbler's there sipping champagne.
The boat is called the Corwins.
Yes,
and
the Corwins.
The plane is called the Corwings.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Oh, good catch. You're just catching all the good stuff today. But Daimler's trying to say, like, hey, I'm friends with the Corwins. They said that I could take your jet. He called the pilot, like, ask the pilot. And this is where Horatio and Catherine drop Dylan's still alive. So, whoops, you left a witness. And now we have enough evidence to put you away for multiple murders in multiple different states. So, and he tries to be like, well, don't, like, trying to say, like, for himself, like, oh, don't worry. He's like, well, rich men don't go to jail. And Horatio's like, you're not rich.
Yeah. It's a great line, because it's actually one of the better lines in the show, because he's delusional, right? He really wants to think he's this person. But I will point out that he shot every other person twice. What? How did he not kill and once to the head? How did he not kill the husband?
I don't know.
Like, they didn't explain that he did. If he knocked him off over the head or tried to throw him overboard or something. He wasn't wet, so I guess not. And I was like, it's like, oh, no. He wasn't really dead. He's fine. The husband's fine. And he finds his wife. But, like, this dude, like, shot everyone in the temple.
Yeah.
And the husband, I don't know what happened.
Except for Trunk Guy, he shot in the neck.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Straight away. Yeah, but I mean, like, real, like, obvious place is going to kill somebody. The husband wasn't even, like, bleeding.
No, he had what looked like his wife's blood on him from, like, holding her and trying to help her. It didn't really look like his own. So he got sloppy. He got comfortable. He got sloppy. It happens. So we then have a scene where Horatio talks to Sasha. She's a smart kid. She's like, hey, my mom and dad are dead. Like, I know. No one has said it to me yet, but, like, I know what's up. And Horatio doesn't necessarily say yes, but he does in a sense. And he leaves her with the words that, people are gonna say things, right, about her parents, and some of them are gonna be true, some of them are not gonna be true, but that she should remember that they fought like heroes for her. Like, they did everything that they could to try to keep her safe. Other than getting her a babysitter when you were having sex parties at your mansion.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that would have been hindsight's always 2020, or 9mm or whatever they say.
Yeah, whatever they say. Then we wrap up the episode with a scene that I don't know if they just wanted to end it in Vegas. They just wanted to confirm that Catherine got back to Vegas. But Catherine goes into Grissom's office. Grissom's wearing a suit. They have this whole back and forth where she's like, why are you wearing a suit? And he's like, for you. And then he's finally like, oh, I had to go to the chief's funeral. That's why I'm in the suit. End of the episode.
Lie and disingenuous as much as possible.
I don't understand. Like, this was a weird scene. But that's the end of this episode. So, Nick, what did you think about today's episode?
It was not. I would not be tuning in to watch season 1, episode 1 of CSI Miami based entirely upon this episode. I still don't feel like I know much about any of those characters.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little confusing. They are very different than the CSI Vegas characters. But also the episode, it felt very, I said it earlier, it felt very piloty. I do have a great note that I didn't bother to call out where Horatio is walking down the path and he finds one of the hair clips for the little girl.
Yeah, he finds a butterfly clip.
Picks it up with no gloves on.
Yeah.
And I just wrote, I see they don't wear gloves in Miami either.
their hands would get all sweaty in the latex gloves.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
they don't want to deal with it.
It's also true in Vegas. It's hot in Vegas,
But it's a dry heat most of the time. Miami has a humid heat.
It's never a dry heat when your hand is inside a latex glove.
I know.
It's a moisture barrier. But yeah, no, they it wasn't great. I actually like at times I was like liking parts of it, and then other times I was just like whatever. But on the second watch through, I was clear that this was a skip.
Yeah. So I will also say that my thoughts on this episode shined through in the second watch through, in which I was like, we already talked about this, but the first time I watched it, and when I was like, oh, that doesn't make sense in a few different spots, I was like, maybe I missed something. Because I will admit that my first watch through, I had it on my iPad playing while I was making dinner the other night. So, like, I was not 100% focused on the episode. To be fair,
you have seen this episode a few times before.
I have. But I was like, all right, I'll just have it up when I'm cooking dinner, and I'll watch it that way, and then I'll do my note-taking on my second watch through. So the first watch through, it was fine. Wasn't great. I also think that they did not do a good job of introducing the CSI cast. But on the second watch through, all those things that I was like, oh, I just must have missed something because I was like cooking while I was watching. No, they just left a bunch of weird stuff hanging out there with no... I feel, and I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on this. I felt this, especially on the second watch through, that they just tried to shove way too much into this episode. Like, this should have been a 2-part episode. And then I feel like it could have been a much better episode because they could have actually like dedicated good time to like introducing the CSI Miami cast and actually like letting us get to know who they are.
The character moments.
What happened with Trunk Man? I want to know what happened with Trunk Man, but they didn't have time to explain what Trunk Man's role was in this at all. Waiting.
Earlier, for most of the episode, I assumed the episode was going to end and that we were going to have to go watch the first episode of CSI
Miami. Yeah.
To continue this storyline.
Yeah.
And because that's how crossovers typically work.
Yes.
Right? Is you have to watch multiple shows.
Yes.
But it makes sense. And maybe there was a world where they wrote this and it was supposed to launch, the first episode. And it just didn't pan out because there's nothing time specific. This could have been anywhere in the season if they wanted it to be, or it could have been the first episode next season, potentially, or whatever. But I think you're right. We needed more time for character development for core operation. I also wanted what did half the characters back in Las Vegas do the whole episode? Not much of anything.
Grissom and Doc Robbins talked a lot. There was a lot of bonding time between Grissom and Doc Robbins. Nick
talking about different ways humans smell because of diseases.
Nick found a single print that belonged to Tiffany, so good. Yeah. Good on you, Nick. Sarah talked about frat parties.
That was her primary contribution this episode.
Yeah.
Even Warwick didn't do much in Miami. He was
he was just there. They were just like, here's some eye candy, Warwick, for you. We'll just put him in shades and make him look cool.
On second walk through, I realized he was in more scenes than I remembered him being in.
Well, because he doesn't do he's just there in a bunch of scenes. Like
he's got a few lines. There's also a weird scene where he like daps up Horatio in the hallway or something.
Oh gosh, I don't even know if I remember that.
At least I think it was work. Hopefully, it wasn't somebody else, and I thought it was work. But no.
Listeners, feel free to correct us.
Yeah, it left a lot to be desired. That's what I said this episode. It left a lot to be desired. So I had high hopes. You get an episode like that, The thing is, at the time this came out, you would not have done this. My understanding is CSI Miami is as big, potentially, if not bigger, than CSI Las Vegas. Because it's very memey, the opening of CSI Miami.
I think that's the only thing that is bigger than CSI, than the CSI we're watching.
That awareness is larger than maybe the show itself.
Yes. I mean, it did run for 10 seasons. So like it had to have a decent enough following if it ran for 10 seasons, but this CSI ran for 16. So this one had a little bit more staying power.
Did all-star cast.
Yeah. So you're a skip. I think I'm a skip on this one. we'll see how we feel next week. We'll return while we review the season finale of season 2.
Yeah, I was gonna
season
say,
2.
is this gonna be the season finale now?
This is not, the next one is the season finale. So
Yeah, that's what I mean.
yes, it is. Yep. So season 2, episode 23, The Hunger Artist. In the meantime, you can support us on Patreon by going to patreon.com and searching for Who Are You, a CSI podcast. You can also find us on Facebook. Same way. Just go to Facebook and search for Who Are You, a CSI podcast. We're also on Twitter/X and Instagram at Who Are You CSI Pod. You can also email us at whoareyoucsipod@gmail.com. But otherwise, we'll talk to you next week.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.